About that. Tell me about
Oh,
that.
we were doing, it was after we'd graduated, and we did a show, one show in the high school auditorium a year later. Tom McMadden moved to Arizona. We got together and repeated some of our stuff.
Yes.
And we needed to gather to rehearse. My mom said she'd go pick you up, but she forgot to take your address. So she knew the neighborhood, and she's driving and she's thinking it's somewhere, but I don't know. She heard it's snow, blizzard. She hears singing and piano, and she stops and she thinks, I think that's Arthur Ray. And she sure enough turned down the street, looked up, I think you were upstairs or something, and it was you. And you came to, she probably yelled or honked the horn. You came down.
Right.
It was a lot. Again, that voice.
Yeah, it was a great deal of singing in my neighborhood back in those days. She is a wonderful lady. Jill, let me ask you, even way back then in Denby, did you have aspirations to be a writer?
I did a little bit. I think I thought more about acting at that point, but by the time I got to college, really, I thought, oh my gosh, acting, I have such admiration for stage performers or anyone who puts their face, because they are the bravest people in the business, to put yourself out there. And I thought, I don't think I have quite what it takes for that life. Yeah. So writing had always interested me. Even as a kid, I'd write little stories. I'd boss my neighborhood kids, friends, and my sister, my poor sister, and cousins into doing, shows. So I did like the whole idea of the writing from early on. But I never thought I would end up having the good fortune that I did with it.
That was my next question. Did you know that you were going to be successful?
No. I was a successful waitress when I got my which I did enjoy. I liked the food business a lot. So when I moved to New York, I was a waitress for 10 years before I even headed to the front desk at Guiding Light. So
after you left Denby, you went to Wayne State, yeah?
Yep.
And so did I. I went to Wayne. I don't kind of remember our paths crossing much at Wayne.
No, did you go straight in 77, like after high school?
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. I started that summer. This summer. But I spent a lot of time working in speech theater with Dr. Geneva Smitherman, and then Vaughn Washington was working in the theater department back then. Yes. So how did you get from Denby and Wayne State to New York? To the Big Apple. How did you
the Big Apple.
How did that happen?
I left, the secret's out, so I left Wayne about 10 credits short of my degree, which was very foolish, and someday I hope to finish it. But I left, and my mom and sister already lived in New York. My parents had divorced or separated, and my mom had moved there. My sister went there. We'd always loved New York, gone on vacations, and I'd always wanted to live there, but I hadn't intended on living there with my mom. I thought on my own I would.
Right.
But it was time. It was time for me to leave Detroit. Nothing, for no other reason than I was 23, and it was a good time to just make a change. So I moved there. I had already had, my sister was there, Margie Zolanka was there. And my mom. So I moved in and I started waitressing at the restaurant where my sister was already working. So I had an easy transition. I was familiar with the city and had some people there. That was, and then I was waitressing during the day in Times Square, and then going to the theater at night to see get half-price tickets. Wow. So I spent a lot of my 20s waitress and seeing theater. So
what an experience. That is an awesome experience. How did you go from being that waitress to the Guiding Light?
All my Guiding Light friends will say, she's going to tell this story. As I tell, whenever I have students or young people, I say, enjoy every job you have, because often an unlikely job leads to something different. If you seem mad and disgruntled, who's going to want to work with you on anything? So I was a really happy waitress. I'm making enough money and doing things. One of my customers, as I was getting into my late 20s, 30, thought maybe I wanted to try to do something else. So a customer who came into the restaurant, invited me to come on a tour of the studio where her husband worked. And she said, they make television commercials. And I said, oh, that would be interesting to see. And she said, you might be interested in writing, you know, for television that way. I said, well, I don't know. I don't think that's something I could do. And she said, oh, well, while you're there, you could also go on a tour of the studio. They also tape the soap opera Guiding Light. And I just, you know, was kind of excited because I'd watched the show since I was a kid with my mom and sister. We watched Procter & Gamble's the Guiding Light, As the World Turns, Edge of Night, you know, many of those shows. So Guiding Light was a personal favorite. And I would say, well, yes, I'll come over there for a tour. I went for a tour. Her husband was lovely and made sure you know, and he said, you know, if we have something open up in the studio, we'll give you a call. And I said, well, thank you very much. But I thought the tour in itself was wonderful.
I see.
Didn't expect a thing. And then a year later, they contacted me to come for a front desk part-time reception.
Really?
And that was
wow.
it. Part-time reception. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So talking about soap operas, there's many probably of the younger people who's watching this podcast that don't even know what a soap opera is, you know. So can you just enlighten us on what a soap opera is?
Soap operas were named soap operas because at the beginning they were radio shows that were sponsored by the company Procter & Gamble that makes dishwashing detergent, Tide laundry detergent, many millions of other things. And so they were the sponsors. The soap company was the sponsor. And opera, because they were big, dramatic, love,
absolutely,
hate, birth, death, big events. So soap opera became the term. It's a serial storytelling. And as I tell students, so many shows are serial story, even situation comedies. If you have a group of characters and you follow them from one week to the next, it's a serial, not exactly a soap opera, but that's serial storytelling. So
yeah, many of the shows that we have today are very similar to that. Mm-hmm. And when I think back on those days when we used to watch soap operas, like at Wayne State, everybody had their favorite channel of soap operas. Like we used to watch Channel 7. I think Guiding Light was on Channel 4.
We were Channel 2.
Channel 2. Channel 2.
General Hospital, All My Children.
Yeah, all my children. Now, everyone out there who's watching us and you had your favorite soap opera, comment on that right now. Let us know what your favorite soap opera was, because everyone had their channel. So Guiding Light was Channel 2. Yeah?
Correct, exactly. And younger people, I found that friends in college, they did tend to watch like All My Children, General Hospital, Days of Our Lives. They were, you know, Guiding Light. Those shows were have a little bit of an older audience, but that was fun, you know.
How did you eventually become the head writer? I saw another video where you were saying co-head writer. Yeah. But how did you become the head writer of Guiding Light?
I'll give you the short version. From front desk, I a couple years later, right before I got married, became the writer's assistant, which is again like being an assistant director for Tom McMahon. It's a great job and you learn everything. I was a writer's assistant for a while.
Absolutely.
And my wonderful friend Nancy Williams-Watt, the script editor, pushed me and a young man who had and still has a great career, David Kreisman, to become script writing partners for a minute, and we got a chance to do a script or two, and then if you do all right, we did a couple, then we got a contract to work together, then we were allowed to do some on our own. And he went on, he was a head writer by the time he was 29 years old. He was kind of amazing. I was a slower mover, and I was the script editor. After script writing, I became the script editor. And then another kind of writer on a soap, which is a breakdown writer. And for a minute, I was a producer. And then I went back to the writing, and I only became a co-head writer for the last year and a half of the show, when David had been a writer for a few years and they wanted to give him a little bit of relief. So I worked with 3 male co-head writers the last year.
Wow. So winning an Emmy Let's talk about that. Winning an Emmy, for those of you who don't know, an Emmy award is an award that recognizes excellence in the television industry. So can you tell us about that process? Did you even know that you were nominated? I heard that you were nominated many times.
We were nominated a lot. We said at Guiding Light, we were really good at losing. We were very gracious losers because we went through many years of not being nominated for a lot of things and not winning for a little while. And so by the time we got to the year where we actually won in 2007, we were out. Usually the Emmys were in New York, but then starting in 2006, they went to LA, and I wasn't even going to go to LA for that. I said, like, I'm busy, I'm not flying, I don't want to go, but I went, thank goodness, But that year we weren't winning anything, and I remember calling my sister Janice on the commercial break from LA and saying, because she and Margie Zalanka and one of our dear friends from high school, Carrie Batinger, they were all watching. Yeah, they were all watching, and my mom at Margie's house together. And I called and said, "Go home. We're not winning anything. We're done tonight. You don't stay up." And then right after the commercial, they presented writing team, and I had my shoes off. I wasn't really. And when they said, and it was 3 of our actors from our show. So if you're going to win an award and your own people give it to you, that's kind of wonderful. And when they said Guiding Light, we weren't even listening. And the head writer's wife had to say, "Go, you won." And so,
wow.
Yeah. And so it's fun to run, as I tell everybody. It's really, I can't pretend that that's not the most wonderful thing, to run up there and have Dave, my friend at the time, accept the award. And the show won the same night. So that was great. We got to run twice.
Wow. I am so very, very happy for you, Jill. You have really come a long way from Denby High School. I also know that you also wrote for other shows like 60 Minutes and Law and Order. Is that correct?
Well, 60 Minutes, we were on 60 Minutes, actually. That's
okay.
Up on but we were on, they did a piece on Guiding Light as we were going off the air, and they were lovely. We shared the studio with them. 60 Minutes.
Really?
So
okay.
we got in the elevator with the reporters. It was very exciting. We used to, but they did a piece, and I was interviewed on air. So I was on the air for 60 Minutes, but it was as a guest. And then Law and Order, I actually, with another Guiding Light colleague, Penelope Kochel, we were doing some writing samples, and their head writer, who's a friend of Penelope's, invited us to come pitch an episode and hired us to write one. He was a lovely man. Yeah, which we really, we learned so much. And the SVU people are wonderful too. It was a great, so as a New York writer, if you get to do a soap opera and a Law and Order, you feel like, well, that's a great thing. Guiding Light was kind of where I found my people. So there were producers and writers there who took care of me and pushed me forward, and so that and I also have always had the most wonderful friends in the world. Yeah, I'm inspired all the time. I'm inspired by my husband. I'm inspired by my sister. I feel like the luckiest person in the world, really.
I love that word inspiration, because to me it means to come out of oneself and to become in spirit. So once you get to that place, you transcend a lot of the noise that's below you.
That's very true. So, that's a lifelong journey.
Yes. Yeah. So out there in podcast land, there's some person who's attempting to reach their dream goals. What advice would you have for them?
Show up. Just show up. Some of it's very simple. It's not just show up, play well with others, share, be collaborative, listen more than you talk. Listen to yourself. Relationships are so important. Being someone that people can count on, and know that you just have one life, and do what you care about.
Jill Lorie Hurst, my friend, I am so glad that you were able to be here. From back then, even until now, you've always been a friend. I mean, I'm just thinking about last year when you and Carrie and Jan came to the premiere of the short movie I starred in, When the Swan Sings on Hastings. Oh my God, I was so glad to see you there. You just touched my feet.
We were very excited. We felt very fancy. We're like, we're going to see our friends screening. We're going to see our friends. We were very proud. It's a good project.
Thank you so much. As Jill and I were discussing, Keep going. Don't ever let anything stop you. When you put your eyes on a goal, keep your eyes on the prize. Remember, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You're on stage. Peace.